Hey, hello friends. Thank you for joining me today. Let me try to get my monitor back up and running here. Come on, come on, come on. My name's Dan. Thank you for joining me again. This is Daily Art Adventure number, for those of you who care, which is basically nobody, but that's right. I entertain myself. Daily Art Adventure number 643, which I have here called Acrylic Dark Details, because that's what I'm doing. Acrylic Dark Details. Okay, so quick description of this painting and what's going on here. This is a commission. You can see me starting this painting. I broadcasted, is that the right word? It might be broadcast as past tense, I can't remember. But anyway, I broadcasted myself doing this about a week ago, I think. And then it's been put to the side since then. And I'm finally back to it. This is a commission piece. I'm going to finish it at a 4th of July party tomorrow. So the objective is to get it finished to a point that I can essentially finish it at the party tomorrow night. Does that make sense? All right, now here's the fun part, is I started this, as I said, a week and a half or so ago, something like that. And that was before my big middle of the night epiphany. Now, if you're new to my channel, that requires little explanation. I do on a fairly regular basis spend time. If I wake up in the middle of the night and I try to go back to sleep, and then after several minutes of tossing and turning, I discover I'm probably not going to go back to sleep, I will get up and, okay, I'm going to use funny language just for you. I usually keep my spiritual proclivities close to my, anyway, I get up and commune with the divine. How about that? I know that's not enough. Some of you hardcore materialists are, well, you're already gone. You already left my channel with that little bit of stuff that feels to you like creepy because you think that, anyway, never mind. I won't get into it. I'm quite capable of arguing in the intellectual realm, but that's not what this channel is about, so I'll just leave it at that. Anyway, I do have a good time talking to God in the middle of the night, and much to my surprise, and the agenda, what we're going to talk about, me and God, is usually balls in His court, not mine. It's my job to listen, His job to talk most of the time, but He welcomes my input and feedback. Again, forgive me, I know I'm creeping some of you out, but that's all right. Some of you need to be creeped out. Anyway, didn't that sound evangelistic now? Which is what creeps you up faster than anything else. Anyway, be that as it may, I had a sense in the middle of the night a couple weeks ago. So if that's the case, then this was started more than 2 weeks ago. Anyway, I had a sense. Okay, I'm gonna let that sentence just dangle there. So there's a name for that, dangling a sentence. I know you put an ellipsis there when you're writing it, but 3 dots, right? But there's a name for it, and I forget what it is. Okay, so suspend that sentence. I'll come back and finish it in a minute, I hope. I have been on a intentional, serious, focused, oft-stated. This has not been subconscious. That is to say, it has not remained in the mere subconscious. No. This has been a stated goal of mine, and if you're a regular, you've heard me state it. It's been a stated goal of mine for at least, I think, 8 years. I want my paintings, have wanted my paintings to be more accurate. That is, more illustrative. Using a new word, I'll talk about that in just a second. More illustrative and more dynamic. Ooh, that's a good word. Or as my new internet friend Paul Talks says, I'll talk more about that in a minute, the illustrative and the decorative. In my world, the word decorative, my life experience, the word decorative has always been an insult thrown at me by the hordes of contemporary, and I say hordes because they are in fact the copycatters of our generation, people that don't have the vision or perspicacity to strike out on their own. They just follow. Most people getting MFAs, in fact, virtually everybody getting an MFA, I would say virtually everybody has to sign off. Anyway, sorry, I'm digressing on my digressions. So let me pull back. I've had this goal to be more realistic or more accurate, and at the same time more messy, more dynamic, more decorative, more abstract. I could say more expressive, but again, I don't like the word expressive because then it has a you think I'm talking, see, you think I'm talking about like abstract expressions or that I'm expressing myself. Again, you regulars know better. You say, tell the newcomers, don't ever accuse Dan of expressing himself. In my art, I express myself with my mouth just fine, but I'm not communicating some message with my art. In fact, I believe that that is the death of art. That is the end of art. When the artist conceives of him or herself as a communicator. And that sounds so innocent. Art is communication. How could you argue with that? Well, I do. I do in fact argue with that. As soon as the artist conceives of him or herself as a communicator, they are no longer an artist. They are in fact what they just said. They take them at their word. They are what they said. They are a communicator. All right. Man, I'm just full of it today. I can't stay on task, on topics to save my life. All right, so where was I? I was, oh yeah, a stated goal, intentional goal, to be more accurate and more messy. Now, if there's any non-artists listening to me, you can shrug and go, okay, well, then that's easy, just do it. But all of the artists listening to me will understand when I say, yeah, easier said than done. All right, that's the way all of art is. It's like easier said than done. That's my goal. I haven't been able to figure out exactly how to get there. Okay, how to get where? More realistic, more accurate, and plus also, in addition to that, at the same time, more decorative, abstract, or expressive, with the big caveat that I just gave you. All right? All of a sudden, 2 weeks ago, middle of the night, I'm just minding my own business. By the way, I always do this. I have a journal in my hand. I have a notebook in my hand, and I'm always writing what I believe I'm hearing. Okay? And again, I don't mean to freak you guys out too much, so I'll just leave it at that. Hearing from what? That's for you to find out. So I'm sitting there, in a sense, minding my own business, listening, and all of a sudden, I can't even remember. I'll have to go back and look at it. It's in my notes. All of a sudden, bingo, bam, zowie, smash, crash, bash. All of a sudden, I went, I know how to do it. I can see. That's really how it felt. I can see how to do this thing more accurate and more messy. All right, I know and if I apologize to you regulars because you're going, you've been talking about nothing but this for a week now, so would you please get on with it? Yeah, I know, sorry. But maybe someday, somewhere, a new viewer will get on board, and I'm trying to help them. All right, so all of a sudden, and by the way, no, that kind of thing does not happen to me very often. You know, I'm communing with the divine. I like that kind of wacky New Age language, by the way. All language is open to me. I am not stuck in a religious rut. Religion is a bad thing. Anyway, no, that kind of thing that I just described does not happen to me very often. Like, oh, do you have these? Do you hear these voices often? Oh yeah, I hear voices a lot. But no, do they talk about, does the voice, I don't, does the voice talk about how to paint? The answer is no. No, not usually. That is exceedingly unusual. Exceedingly, did I say that already? Exceedingly unusual. But anyway, so with great excitement, anticipation, then this week, I started a 6x6 foot painting. I think it was this week. Time runs together. Time runs together when you're having so much fun. And so you can watch me last night, yesterday, the day before that, and so on and so forth, doing the 6x6 foot painting. But I've got to interrupt myself now for this commission that is due. I have to finish it tomorrow. So the interesting situation in which I find myself now is I'm retro painting this scene because I didn't start it, I don't think, with that mindset. That okay. So here's the more specifically. Beside, I can be more specific than simply more representational and more literal at the same time. I can be more specific. Here it is. Here's what I want to do. Is I want to retain more of my initial abstract underpainting. And again, you regulars know what I'm talking about. If there's a newcomer watching, welcome, welcome. Thank you. Please subscribe if you want more inane rambling. How could you not? Please subscribe and hit the bell. I do an average of 5 broadcasts a week. Thus, I'm up to number 643. Okay, but more specifically, more concrete, more technically speaking, here's what I'm after. Is I do an abstract painting these days for about the last 2 years, I think. I do a very intentional abstract painting on the canvas before I start my scene. Oh, by the way, here's you see here, don't you? There's my reference, right? The photo that my client actually gave to me. Here's what it actually looked like when they gave it to me. Oh no, even that's photoshopped. I'm sorry. Even that's photoshopped. So, I mean, then I photoshopped it more. Okay, sorry. So I don't have the original. So I took their photograph and messed it up in Photoshop quite a bit. And that's what I'm painting from. So you can still see the in this case, the initial underpainting abstract. You can see it quite well. It's these mostly red and orange swooshes, stripes. This is not a sailboat. This is not like lines that refer to masts to sails. No. This here's a mast, here's a mast, here's a mast, and the lines are real skinny. This is pure abstraction. Okay. Down here we have a great big orange swoosh. You can see that down there, and a big yellow green swoosh there. All right, all of that is abstract, and my goal now, and what I heard in the middle of the night was like, oh, how to retain more of that abstract underpainting. And then this past week, some of you who follow me, you've watched me. I've learned a lot downstairs in the garage doing a 6x6 foot painting of a city street and reviewing. I've come up with 3 ways to save or preserve the underpainting. Let me back up a little bit. For the last couple of years, I do an abstract and then I paint on top of it. In almost every painting, I go, darn, I covered up too much of the abstract. Okay, so now I have consciously in mind how to avoid doing that. One is when I'm painting and I come up, so let's say to this orange swoosh right here, instead of painting right across it, I'll pick up my brush, skip over it, and start painting down here so I don't paint. That's number 1. Number 2, I'll go ahead and here's a stripe right here, red orange stripe. So I'm going to paint blue water in here, right? Because it's going to be a representational painting. But when I have blue, pale blue, opaque paint on my brush, I'll come up to that orange line, pick up, and go over it. That's option number one. Option number two is I'll paint right over it and then immediately pick up a rag and wipe it off. Okay, so that's two ways to preserve the underpainting. Skip over it. Number two, wipe it off. And then number three, I'll go ahead and paint over it and then come back and repaint the abstract on top. So pretty simple, really, when you think about it. 3 tricks for preserving. And you could say to me, well, that's not hard. Why didn't you start doing that years ago? My answer is easy for you to say. All right. So I'm going to continue. Hey, some good chats coming in. Rip Humanity. There's a new person. 666 says hi. Thank you. Good to hear from you. I rather like humanity and don't think it's dead, but that's all right. And somebody else says, Maps Draw and Chill 375 says greetings. Likewise. And Sujit Sharma. 3 new guys right in a row. Where are you? Hey, Rip Humanity. I'm born in Canada. I lived for 30 years. I've lived in Raleigh, North Carolina, United States. Thanks for asking. Nice to hear you're from Germany. I always like to know where people come from. Uncle 60, being funny, says, art is communication. It communicates that I'm broke. I'm trying to not do that. Don't touch the sky. Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, that's kind of nice, isn't it? I am going to touch it, but I'm going to try to heed your advice, not touch it too much. And then maybe you'll touch a blue. Yeah. Oh, that's my Horatio. That's my light. There we go. All right. And even now we're getting a glare over here. Do you see? All right. Do you see that? That's a better representation. But I'll talk in a minute about composition here. Oh yeah, it's 36 by 48. Thanks for asking. Again, there's the bottom of the canvas and my makeshift palette of acrylics. I'm still in the acrylic stage. And I am now, hang on, I need to cover up all these little pots of paint so they don't dry out, because I'm done with those. I think right now, then I think I'm going to do white acrylic, maybe some opaque color, we'll see. And then I'm ready to graduate to oil. Again, I have to finish this tomorrow at a party in a house, and I've got about 4 hours, roughly from 6 to 10 tomorrow to finish it. So I want to definitely have entered into the oil stage. For one thing, I want to glaze the whole thing with liquid today so I don't release those fumes into the home tomorrow evening. And I'm happy to say that the composition, again, here's the painting, the photograph, that does not really help me very much at all with composition in my book. Okay, now review a little bit. Composition refers primarily to the major light and dark zones of a painting. Secondarily, sure, it refers to shapes, but shapes of what? Shapes of light and dark. What about shapes of color? Not so much. Shapes of value, shapes of light and dark. What about lines? Yeah, lines a little bit, but no, lines are very subservient, in my opinion, to the major light and dark. And one of the ways to think about composition is this. If you can describe either the major light or the major dark zone, singular, of your painting in one word, then it's a good composition. I know that's a little arbitrary. Every rule can be broken. I'm not trying to give you handles that you can handle, handles that work. And I'm happy to say, with where I'm at right now, a composition is emerging. It's always nice when that happens. I didn't do a sketch, which is normal for me, because I have light here, light on this railing, light down in this corner, and I have light here. So what is emerging is basically a cone or a shaft of light. Let me get my long brushes for a second. Here's what's emerging. is a cone or a shaft of light like that. So everything, as it's going right now, it's just going to go slightly darker, 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 and light like that. That's a nice composition. It catches the front of this boat, the back of this boat, which is, you know, major elements, and the lighter area in the water right here, lighter area in the sky right here, catches this boat too, which is really important, and will just catch especially one or two of these flowers. Again, you could see the photograph there. I don't know what kind of flowers those are, but big, big, beautiful. This is a scene, by the way, from Beaufort, North Carolina, one of the beautiful seaside coastal towns here in North Carolina. So I'm going to proceed in that direction. Excuse me. Right now, it's a white paint. It dawned on me just before I started broadcasting. Of course, I paint with two hands. You should paint with two hands too. If you will start painting with two hands, I believe you'll be a better artist instantly. Your left hand feels, or your wrong hand if you're left-handed, your weak hand feels weird, awkward, uncoordinated. All those things result in interesting marks. But even if you just paint with one hand, why do artists use an assortment of brushes? Let me show you. I'm upstairs. This is my, this is my third studio in my house these days. So here's the brushes I'm using. Why do I need this many brushes? Of course not. Could I do this entire painting with one brush? Of course. In fact, sometimes I see a beginner painter boasting about the fact that they did the entire painting with one brush. That's an immature painter. So why do most artists have an assortment of brushes? Some of them are new and in really good shape, like that one right there. It's an expensive brush, still in good shape. Other brushes are old and cheap and not very good shape, like that one right there. Why do I keep it? Because every brush makes a different kind of mark. There you go. Simple. The essence of good painting is making interesting marks. And so different brushes make different marks. And I buy nice brushes like this silver. Let me see if I can get that. Can you read that? Silver. You can't read that. Silver Brush Company. I think it's the best American-made brush. Rosemary out of Great Britain. And I'm not an expert, so I'm not going to defend that statement with any kind of gusto. It's the best I know. But I buy cheap brushes. Like this one is called Pro Stroke. I can buy them at Jerry's Artorama for, a package of them, 5 or 6 of them for $14. That's ridiculous. As I like to say, Rembrandt never had a brush as good as this cheap brush that I paid $2 for. So I'm warring against snobbery with those kind of statements. I don't like snobbery usually. I fall into it sometimes myself, but no, I don't like it. All right, so 2 different shaped brushes, that's all. I don't usually talk about tools, but I will talk about it a little bit. Now, I've got white paint on my brush, and let's start. What was that? Did you see that? Okay, again, you regulars, you know what that is. There's another one. I give my hands permission to have little seizures without my permission, quote unquote. Obviously, I'm not being technically precise because that doesn't make any sense. I give my hands permission to have seizures without my permission, especially if I've been painting in an overly fastidious or fussy or tight manner for too many seconds or minutes. Now, right then I hadn't been painting at all, so it's not always after I've been too tight, but sometimes. And here's another variation on a theme. While that's still wet, this is acrylics, right? So everything dries really quickly. Little lost edge there would be nice, yep. I'm looking at the photograph, have been looking at the photograph today. I've done over the years, I've done quite a few very careful, accurate airbrush renderings of boats. So I have a pretty good idea what boats look like. So I don't feel like I need to kill myself looking at my reference here today. Close is good enough. You know what? I am going to end up doing some a little bit of opaque blue. Let me go back to that my major statement. I'm on this journey, and I think I've just turned a corner, like a 5-year corner. It's a very significant turn. I'm on this journey of trying to make paintings that are one at the same time, more accurate, precise, realistic, illustrative, and at the same time, these are, you understand, these are countervening forces. These things work against each other. I'm sure you're catching that. So it's not easy to do, to be more realistic and more abstract at the same time. If you're thinking, wait, that doesn't make any sense, then thank you, you're paying attention. Because you're right, in a way it does not make sense. Those are, as I say, countervening. Do you like that word? Countervening forces. Hey, I've got some new language for my painting, my approach to painting, my painting life, my painting journey. Again, not to freak anybody out, but this came to me early this morning, so to speak, in the middle of the night. It wasn't really middle of the night, but I went back to bed and slept some more after. So, you know, that kind of deal. My paintings are multi-layered, expressly so. Most of the old masters, you know, Rembrandt is the god over us all, frankly. But my painting is deliberately and intentionally and technically very focused on multiple layers. Right? Yes. And because they are multi-layered, they are, as a consequence, or other words for the same thing, they end up being, and again, I would point to my painting that I'm working on downstairs in the garage that I hope I will be able to get to later in the day. Hope to finish this one to, you know, ready for tomorrow night's party, and then get back to my big painting downstairs. When you look at it, it is multi-layered. Another word for that, it is multi-dimensional. Now, of course, it's a flat canvas. Yes, of course. But the layering, it's a hard word to say, that layering process infuses the painting with a multi-dimensional feeling, or multi-dimensional aspect. And that, I have recently thinking, I didn't intend this, but it dawns on me, so late in this game, so to speak, it dawns on me that, hey, wait a minute. That's a good description of reality, real reality. I'm talking like a philosopher when I use the word reality. So I'm being philosophical, if you will. Reality is very complex. Another word would be reality is very rich, complex, multifaceted, multidimensional. If nothing else, we all, the whole human race, should have learned this lesson with Einstein, with the advent of quantum physics, quantum cosmology, quantum mechanics, and so forth, that we no longer live in a nice, simple, neatly tied up with a bow Newtonian universe, right? Things ain't what they seem. Or we're not in Kansas anymore, Toto. Because time isn't what we thought it was, space isn't what we thought it was, gravity, we have no idea what it is. So we live in a multi-dimensional universe. And all of a sudden it dawned on me, hey, that's kind of cool. Because my paintings, I wasn't trying to be pompous or philosophical about it at all. But it just dawned on me rather late in the process that, hey, my paintings are like that. My paintings are, by the way, I'm picking up a watercolor stick at the moment. It's an unusual tool, isn't it? I'm becoming, in my own estimation, Dan Unusual Tool Nelson. I've been using, as you know, I've been using the pencils. I did this before these pencils, again, this review for you old timers, Jumbo Jet Black by Jerry's Autorama. Kind of not as greasy as a grease pencil, but more greasy than a Conti crayon. There you go. Very unconventional. I always imagine some student, young person watching me and then going to his or her art class and whipping out a pencil in their oil painting class, and the teacher having a seizure. No, you don't use pencils in oil paintings. I don't know if any such thing would or could ever happen. Well, it could happen. I don't know if everything ever will, but anyway, that's the picture. So please understand, students, any students that are listening, be careful. Your teacher does not approve of using black pencils in a oil painting. Because he or she was not taught such things when they went to school. So be gentle on your teachers, because they don't know what they don't know. Which brings up another related subject. Just because I'm going to paint, and you might as well listen to me jabber, or leave, of course. You know that little what is it? X under at the bottom of my camera. That means I've had enough of this baloney. You all know that. I'm sorry. So anyway, one way to think about any field of human endeavor, I guess I'm limiting myself somewhat to the fields of human endeavor that require hard work. So I'm not talking about sleeping, having sex, eating. Those are not human endeavors. Those are human activities. But I'm talking about any field of human endeavor that requires grit, determination, energy, some kind of intelligence, some kind of intuition. So especially the arts. But now let's narrow down and just talk about art. This is a convenient way to understand the world of painting, any art, but let's limit ourselves at the moment to painting. There are three, I'm being overly arbitrary, of course. Whenever somebody says, there's three levels, they're kind of like, well, yeah, sort of. Okay, so just sort of. Think of it this way. There are three levels of cognition in the act of painting. The lowest level, and that is not I am not denigrating this level at all. In fact, it's this sort of like entry level. If you don't got this, you don't got nothing. But the entry level could be conceived of as knowledge, know-how, knowing how to paint. And one of the things you can do when you take a class, especially from or a good teacher, you learn know-how. You learn facts. You learn, quote unquote, how to paint. Check. That is not earth-shattering. Okay? If you're thinking I'm going to get really deep, no, I'm not. That's okay. That's level number one is know-how, knowledge. Know how to paint. You take a class and you begin to learn how to paint. Now, all of you know, especially once you've taken more than one class, I say this to my students all the time, especially because my approach to painting is somewhat unusual. I say, now understand that next time you take a painting class, your next teacher is going to like contradict virtually everything that I've been teaching you in this class today. I just want to warn you, especially if they are beginners. What I'm teaching you is, and I usually say, like, let's say if it's a one-day class and it goes from noon to 5, I always say to them, virtually always, I say, okay, now please understand that my way to paint is the only way. It's the right way. It's the only way to paint until 5:01 this evening. then it's out the window, and you can paint any way you want to. There's thousands, millions of different ways to paint, all right? But my way is the right way while you're taking my class. But after my class is over, you can do whatever you want. So there's knowledge is level number one. There is a deep, and some people stop there. That's as far as they ever get. And again, that is not a slight or a denigration. I'm not belittling people who stop at that level. But there is a separate, in addition to that, deeper. I'm not sure deeper is the word. An additional level, and it's what I typically call understanding. And frankly, a lot of, and I don't know why I have understanding. It's a gift. It's a history. It has to do with my genes, my culture, my ancestral memory, perhaps. Who knows? There's so many reasons, so many things that could impact this. My dad was a good hobby painter. I had nothing to do with that. Anyway, it's because of the way my mind works. Most of what I teach on this channel could be understood as I'm teaching, or as coming from the understanding level of painting. Why do I teach the way why do I teach what I teach? And why do I teach the way that I teach? The answer is because I'm operating on a level of understanding, not simply a level of knowledge. And just for what, and again, not very often the most technically proficient at any field of human endeavor. Many times the people that are most technically proficient are people who stop at the knowledge level. Again, so I want you to understand, I'm not putting down, I'm not saying understanding it's superior in a sense because it's bigger, broader, higher, deeper, something like that. Broader is probably the safest term. But that is not to put down people who just learn how to do something and then stop there. And again, in many fields of human endeavor, the people who become most proficient at any technical skill are in fact the ones who, in a sense, draw the line at knowledge. Let me tell you what very often I see in the art world. Again, not a criticism, just an observation. Somebody will go and take a class. I'm gonna name a big dog just for fun. One of my favorite painters in America, Kevin McPherson, one of the most famous plein air painters in America right now, and a really nice guy. I've never taken a class from him, but I've watched him do demos a couple times, and in person and online. And I like him a lot, and I like his paintings a lot, even though We don't paint an awful lot the same. There's a lot that I don't do. Anyway, so a person will go and take a class from, say, Kevin McPherson. What do they learn when they're taking, especially from somebody like a master? Like, what do they learn? They learn how to paint. They learn knowledge. They gain knowledge. And then they come home and, in a sense, can say, huh, I know how to paint now. And they paint like Kevin McPherson. And again, no criticism of him, certainly, or of the student that does that. But please understand that when somebody does that, they are then operating at a level of knowledge. I know how to paint. I paint like Kevin McPherson. In fact, there's some people that could probably out Kevin McPherson. Did you catch that? There's some people that could actually paint like Kevin McPherson better than Kevin McPherson does if they stop, drop, and roll. If they stop right there and never go any further and just learn the techniques that Kevin taught them, you know, in July of 2017, say, you know, going back a little ways, just for, you know, they stop there and they master it. Ironically, what typically is the situation is that Kevin teaches his students how to paint, teaches them knowledge, but he's more often than not operating on a level of understanding of painting. How did he choose, for instance, how did Kevin decide what technique to adopt and to then teach others? The answer is he developed through the level of understanding. Kevin didn't, he was influenced by other people, but most of what he teaches, I am quite sure, is stuff that he made up, so to speak, made up himself. So what happens is Mary Jo, making up that name just for fun, fictitious name, Mary Jo goes and takes a class, say, from Kevin McPherson in June of 2017. She comes home and says, hallelujah, I have learned how to paint. She might say, I have learned how to paint like Kevin McPherson. Or she could just say, no, I've learned how to paint. And she'll come home and start painting. And if she's pretty proficient at it and pretty good and has a teacherly inclination, she may even start teaching all of her students how to paint like Kevin McPherson. And that's perfectly fine and valid. In the meantime, Kevin, who is a real human being and probably teaches out of a level of understanding, he will keep on experimenting, fudging, messing with his technique. And when Mary Jo goes back to take a class from Kevin McPherson 3 years later, she goes, what? He's not doing exactly the same thing. Now, why does it help? Why am I talking about this? Again, it's not to put anybody up or down. It's a good to be kind of self-aware, to know what you are and who you are. And then you can make the best of what you are. So if you are you don't have to be an innovator. You do not, and by the way, the word innovation and painting on an understanding level, those two things very often, in fact, go together. You may be a person who just excels at gaining knowledge. And if you are, you stand a decent chance of learning how to use my analogy, out Kevin McPherson Kevin McPherson. Can you do you understand what I'm saying? You can learn to paint like him better than him. If your particular personality, gifting, skill, and so on and so forth has a certain profile, you can actually become better than him at what he does. And that's good. We need people who can do that. We need practitioners who will take things even farther than the initiator can take them. So there are two levels of cognition. I'm using that word. I'm trying to remember, what is this thing right here? Oh, it used to be the post, but it's not anymore, and I'm going to cover that up because I don't like it. That was not part of my abstract. By the way, do you see this green stripe? That's abstract. Do you see that up here when I was painting earlier, when I was painting blue opaque water, there was a yellow, an orange, stripe, and I came up to it, stopped, and then started up here, and then painted in the middle of it. So I actually split it into two. Down here, this green mark is abstract underpainting. So I'm painting around it to maintain, keep, or save, or preserve the abstract underpainting. Why am I doing that? Simply because I believe it makes it a better painting. That's all. It's not because I'm trying to, communicate anything. Like I said earlier, I'm not trying to communicate to my viewers that reality is multifaceted. Therefore, no. Do you understand? That would be, that, in my opinion, that would be a violation of the artist's code to start trying to convey to people, oh, I paint in layers because reality is multifaceted. No, that's oh, poppycock, creeps me out even just to say it. I do not like that kind of thinking at all. All right, where was I? Okay, hang on to your hats though. Well, since I've gone that far into this big conversation, tirade about levels of cognition, are there any more? The answer is yes, there are. There's at least one more. And it is somewhat on a continuum. At the simplest level, there is knowledge. At a deeper level, that is understanding. Knowledge, let's just talk about painting for a minute. Knowledge is knowing how to paint. Understanding is knowing why the rules that you learned at the knowledge level, why they work, how they function, why we do this, that, and thus and so. Okay? I'm sorry to sound so self-absorbed, but there's no question that that is the level at which I teach most of the time. I'm not just teaching how to paint, I'm teaching why this, that, and the other are in fact effective as techniques or strategies for painting. Hang on just a second, I have to straighten out some architecture over here. There is a third level. So level one is knowledge. Level 2 is understanding. Level 3 is wisdom. Now, you know, I'm presupposing all kinds of things, all kinds of worldviews here to use any of this language. First of all, you can tell that I am not a postmodern philosopher. I do not have the worldview of a postmodern, because a postmodern would they've already left my channel if they ever visited, because you're not allowed to make any observational judgment statements at all. Anyway, be that, some of you don't know what I'm talking about. That's all right. Good. Bless you for not even knowing what I'm talking about. So a third level of understanding or cognition is wisdom. Wisdom addresses the question, let me put it this way. Knowledge is how to paint. Understanding is why the rules are what they are, how the rules apply. Third level is why to paint at all. Why do we paint? Why do human beings do any? And again, reserving myself to human endeavors as a philosophical statement. So I'm not talking about why do human beings, like I said earlier, you know, go to baseball games. That would not be human endeavor. Why do human beings play baseball? That's more what I'm talking about. Even though a philosopher could indeed talk about it, and I could indeed talk about why we go to games, but I'm limiting myself for this conversation just to the human endeavors, not just human activities. That is another conversation, human activities. So a third and deeper, I think, forgive me for using a judgmental, sounds like a judgment statement by saying deeper. That's the easiest way to put it, is why to paint. And you do not have to know why to paint. You don't have to know that. Any one person doesn't need to know that. But somebody, somewhere should give some thought as to why human beings either do paint or should paint, one or the other. I happen to believe that human beings should paint, and I have, as you can imagine, no, you don't have opinions on that subject, do you? Not Dan Nelson. God forbid that he would have an opinion on anything. Yes, I have opinions about wisdom. And I can do this in a fairly, currently accepted prevailing worldview manner, not so as to satisfy the angry materialists among us, of which there are many, not so much among ordinary population, but among the intelligentsia. There are a lot of angry materialists. I won't define it any more than that. I'm going to let that dangle. One of my favorite words here of late, I would say in the last 5 years, my favorite words is we, I, and many others are interested in human flourishing. Now already you can tell we're getting kind of into the ooey gooey invisible realities of existence, and that will make some people uncomfortable. That can't do anything about that unless I just shut up, which I'm not going to do. Human flourishing, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, inner, invisible realities. The notion of invisible realities, of course, is well, first, it's anathema to some scientists. And again, I operate in these kinds of things, the philosophical realm all the time. When I'm not broadcasting with you guys, I'm listening to history, philosophy, theology, and science podcasts nonstop, pretty much. And what I'm reading, what's on my bed table right now is books. So this is where I live. You don't need to live where I do, but somebody somewhere should think about, so why do we paint anyway? Why do we even do it? And again, I'm not going to go on at length, but just to use the term, we, many of us, are interested in helping human beings, all human beings, flourish. And in my estimation, that's a good thing. Flourishing is a good thing. Emotionally, relationally, intellectually, spiritually, physically, in every way. I honestly think we were put here to flourish. It's a struggle. It's a non-stop struggle because there's an awful lot of bad stuff in life, in the world. We're all going to get lots of pain that will put our flourishing to the test. But the best among us are those who flourish. And art, painting, is a tool, a vehicle. Let me even say, yes, the act of painting is. Does it help my soul to paint? Yes, absolutely. Does it help your soul to paint? In fact, that is when I teach, again, sort of, I don't know sure if the word is philosophically, when I teach on painting, the very final bottom line for painting, when I talk to students, why should you paint? And of course I want people to paint well. I really do, because it's good for your soul to paint well. Do anything well. It's good for your soul. But in a sense, the bottom line is you should have fun. That's saying the same thing in very non-philosophical terms. Why should you paint? Because doggone it, it's fun. Okay? That's flourishing. And but let's talk about not the act of painting like I'm doing right now, or you artists do. Let's talk about when the painting is finished. What's the purpose of the painting? Now this is exciting to me, or this is significant to me, and this gets down to my definition or description of what art is, and why I am what's the word? I guess violently without getting violent. When a philosopher says violently, he doesn't literally mean, Antifa kind of violence. He's using the term as a philosopher. It just means I'm strongly opposed to the prevailing philosophy of the academy, that is the university, and the art establishment. Okay, enough of the speaking in code. Here's what the prevailing culture, art culture, all the museums, all the universities, and all the municipal art associations like United Arts Council and the City of Raleigh, my town, City of Raleigh Arts Council, they have a very, very particular and specific view of art. And here it is. They say art is for communication. And I am diametrically opposed. Instead of violently, this time I'll say, I am diametrically opposed to that notion. No, art is not for communication. In fact, as soon as art becomes communicative, it ceases to be art. It ceases to be art. And instead becomes what? Communication. That's what we just said. Right? So do I want souls to flourish when they look at my painting? Now we're getting down to it. Absolutely, yes, I do. Do souls flourish when I preach at them a propagandistic message of any kind whatsoever? Let's take two extreme opposite examples of propaganda. Okay, let's say I'm a, again, typical, I'll even say college art professor. And I believe that most art should be communicating and railing against the military-industrial complex. In other words, I am either a card-carrying, confessing cultural Marxist, or I am, like most people who are not philosophers, I'm an unaware culture. I don't know that I'm preaching the gospel of Karl Marx. I just believe what I've been programmed to believe all the way from my earliest days of my education, from kindergarten on up. I've been programmed to believe that if, for instance, if somebody is rich, it's because they abused somebody else who is poor. Okay, and I'm mad as hell about that. That's a cultural, that's a Marxist. Okay, and cultural Marxism is related to that. If anybody creates something of beauty, first of all, it's a judgment call. There's no such thing as beauty. I should be painting in order to convey a message, and I just said, for instance, that the message is the military-industrial complex is evil, even though in another conversation, another part of my conversation, I will deny the existence of evil. But when I'm talking about military-industrial complex, I will weep and wail and moan and groan and shout and throw rocks and so on to say that the military-industrial complex, especially the United States, as manifested by the United States of America, all Western countries, but especially the good old bad old U.S. of A. Okay, so if I say and it comes with an attitude, damn it, I'm going to do paintings that show that the military-industrial complex is evil. And then I go, wait a minute, I don't believe in evil. Okay, naughty. I'm being silly now. Okay, so that's propaganda, right? As soon as I make that my objective, my art turns into propaganda. My art turns into crap. Let's use another example. Let's say I'm a born-again Christian, which some people would use that label on me. I'm very reluctant to use that label, but let's just say, okay, so I'm a born-again Christian, and I think, well, doggone it, if I don't do paintings that tell people to accept Jesus Christ as their personal Lord and Savior, you all know that. You all know that typical evangelical language, right? Even if you're not an evangelical, you understand, you know that, you've heard that language. So I should start preaching to everybody through my painting. And I should start telling them, accept Jesus Christ, become a Christian, follow Jesus, blah, 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 whatever you want to call it. At that point, I am no longer an artist. What am I? I'm a preacher or a propagandist. There's a reason we all have a visceral and negative reaction to the notion of being preached at. I affirm that heartily. I detest being preached at, especially when it's duplicitous. That is to say, when the person is posing as an artist. See my paintbrushes? See my paint? See my canvas? I'm an artist. See? Artist. See? Artist. And yet inside they're saying, no, actually, I'm a communicator. Actually, I'm a communicator. Actually, I'm a communicator. So in my not so humble opinion, art turns into crap when it becomes communicative. Now, let me expand that, because I've talked about this periodically, but I don't always pursue it to this level. And again, all those of you who are hating what I'm saying, you're long gone. So this is just for the few left, the 12 people left, who could give a flippin' rip about any of this stuff. Where was I going to go with that? Yes, communication. Here we go. All right, communication. Because this is ubiquitous in our culture. Talk to the ordinary person on the street. Stick a microphone in their face and ask them, what is art all about? And they'll use different language, different words, but basically what most people in the West think is that art is about expression, self-expression. I'm expressing myself. In other words, art is communication. That is absolutely ubiquitous. That means it's everywhere. It is a myth that has way overspilled its bounds. That's what ubiquitous means. Everybody believes it. And I'm telling you, I think it's hogwash. Absolutely. As soon as art turns into self-expression, art dies. That doesn't mean they can't do things artistic, or that they can't produce something that is actually of interest or of value. They can, but their basic modus operandi, their basic philosophy has gone sideways, haywire. When somebody says, the goal of my art is to communicate. All right, so, but on the other hand, if someone said to me, what? Don't you believe that your paintings reflect you? And I would go, okay. Now, you non-thinkers, now I don't mean that you're not intelligent, but people that are not accustomed to philosophical discourse, you're about to check out, if you've already checked out. But anyway, because it requires some degree of verbal sophistication, linguistic sophistication. Here it is. Does a painting communicate things about the painter? The answer is absolutely, inevitably, yes, without doubt, always, without question, in my opinion. A finished work of art reflects or communicates a great deal about the artist, the creator. And then someone says, wait a minute, I thought you just said a few minutes ago that art is not communication. I did. Art is not about communication, but art does in fact communicate. Art is not about communication, but art does, yes, in fact, communicate. Now it's real easy for me, in my opinion, it's real easy for me to describe, I think, the dividing line. So bear with me for just a minute, if those of you who are still interested, if you're still with me. It's real easy to describe where the, what's the word? The offense, the crossing the line, where the soccer, European football, where the yellow flag is thrown. The yellow flag is thrown. the yellow flag is thrown. At which point, American football, the flag is thrown. Penalty. Here's where the violation takes place. Ready? When the artist, myself in this case, in front of this canvas, when the artist stands before the canvas, like I'm standing here working on this painting, when the artist stands before the canvas and says to him or herself, I am going to communicate a message to the viewers of my painting, that artist has committed the foul. The yellow card, I said flag, I meant card. You can tell I'm not a soccer player. The yellow card is thrown, shown. In football, American football, you know, the yellow flag is thrown. In basketball, the whistle is blown. Foul. No. It is when the artist stands before the unfinished painting and says, I shall communicate with my viewing public. That is a violation. That is a nope. That is a foul. You may not do that. Now, I hear my monitor talking after me. Sometimes it's kind of funny. Here is the proper form or process of communication between a painter and those who view his or her paintings. Are you ready? So I'm going to give you not the violation, not the yellow card, red card, yellow flag, whatever, if you don't mind my football analogies. When I stand in front of my canvas, I am communicating. I'll even use the old-fashioned word communing because it expresses it so well. I am communing. You can see this as I jabber on endlessly as I continue to paint. You're watching this. I am communing very intensely with my canvas. I am not thinking per se about the final end viewer, hoping he or she will think this or that or thus and so. Per se. I am simply communicating with my canvas. It's man to man, toe to toe, mano a mano, me and the canvas. You'd almost say me versus the canvas, right? Here is my problem, and here's me working, struggling with all the verve, life, energy, psychic force I have within me to create, in this case, a good painting, not to communicate. As soon as I say, what could it be? It's obvious this is not a communication, but what could it be? Is this? I'm trying to think. I don't even know what I could possibly be painting. Be that as it may, that is what is legal. That is, oh, okay, so then I finished the process. I communicate deeply with my canvas. I engage. But what kinds of messages? Here's the thing. What kind of message am I thinking about with regard to my canvas? My messages are composition, color, light, line, contrast, balance, tension. Do you hear me? It's no mystery. What am I thinking about? I'm thinking about all the abstract elements of painting. Oh, and by the way, yes, sirree, as a secondary, I am thinking about boat, railing, flower, sailing ship, sails, sky, and so on. Did you catch that? What am I thinking? And so this is a good reflection of, in my opinion, good painting, proper painting, and certainly my painting. My number one concern is composition, values, texture, color, light, line, shape, tension, balance, repetition, rhythm, all those principles and elements of design. 10th grade art class. That's my number one concern. Oh, and by the way, my secondary concern is, atmospheric perspective, space, boats, water, railing, flowers, and so on, in that order. Do you understand? So I'm working very hard. Let me tell you, to be a little more specific, let me tell you the messages that I'm communicating, and I'm being quite philosophical here. Let me tell you what I'm communicating with this painting, and this is where I do get communicated. I am telling you, to be overly simplistic, but just to make, I'm telling you that red is real. Fuchsia red, cool red, is real, believable, authentic, and has a correspondence to a reality beyond itself, but not like more like not spiritual outer space, New Age, more like Plato. Everybody looking at this painting recognizes yellow and green. And I'm saying to you, yellow and green are real, believable, authentic. And your eyeball sees it as red, yellow, green, red, blue, and so forth. And it's beautiful. Oh my goodness. There we go. The B word. I would get kicked out of the academy. I mean, back in 1977, let me tell you what happened. I was an art major. I switched from a music major to an art major between my sophomore and junior years. That's another story. I've told about that a little bit. The reason, by the way, I switched from music to art is because part of the reason I thought, well, if I don't major in art, and if I don't major in music, I know I'm still going to be a serious musician 50 years from now. You know what? I was right. But I thought, but I'm not sure I'm going to be a serious artist. So I decided to major in art. That's pretty funny, but it's worked out really well. In other words, I went with my weaker suit at the time. I was a better musician than an artist. But anyway, that's a funny story. I went through 4 years and was not graduated. It hadn't, I transferred and so on. So I took a semester off, the fall. When I came back for my third semester of being a senior, the head of the art department was disappointed to see me walk through the door. Think about it. And he did not work extremely hard at concealing his disappointment. He was sincerely embarrassed for his art department that a person like Dan Nelson would come back and finish his art degree in his art department. Sometimes, and some of you can do some research and you can find out where I went to college. And it is a good college. It is not a good art department. I don't think to this day it's not a good art department. Why? Because they got snookered. They got sucked in my opinion, to the prevailing art philosophy of the day, that art is communication. And doggone it, this Dan Nelson guy, he just could not get it through his thick skull that realistic painting was out. Yes, I just heard the word from Paul talk. There was a fata, what's the word? There was a, I have to look it up. It's a great word. It's not part of my normal vocabulary. So there was a fata, somebody's help me here, against representational painting. And why did I get into that? How did I get there? I forget. So let me go back to what I'm saying. So I dangle confusion. If this was an essay, I'd be getting an F. I commune. Oh, I know. I was saying I believe in the color red. I believe in light composition, all this stuff, and that put me out of sorts with the art department where I received a Bachelor of Fine Arts degree. It took me decades to recover from my inadequate art education. And I'm as serious as I can be. It took me decades to put into perspective the crap that was done to me. Now, you could say, well, man, what a weenie head. You should have gotten over. Yeah, I was young. Think about it. Now I'm 65 years old and go, man, I was sold a bunch of crap. But when you're 22, 3, 4, 5, and these old, mature, smart people diss you significantly, that takes some getting over. Whew. All right. And I didn't tell you all that to make you feel sorry for me. I told you all that to put you in touch with what's going on in the typical academy. The college I went to was absolutely typical. Absolutely, I know that some of the guys that taught there and women graduated from the University of Michigan. Major university in America. Like every state has its major universities. All right, so the process is I commune intensely, which is what you see me doing, with my canvas. When it's all done, it hangs on a wall, say. This will certainly hang on a wall. I know whose house it's going to hang in. Then every person, every Tom, Dick, and Harry, every ordinary, non-artistic or artistic person that shuffles up, this is me shuffling, and stands and looks at my painting, they communicate and commune with the canvas. I am no longer in the picture. My communion with this canvas ends tomorrow night at 10 o'clock, theoretically, just to be fun, okay? When I sign it and I put a wire on the back and paint the edges, I am done communing with this canvas. But then the consumer of art, a viewer of art, stands before this painting, and it's their turn now. My canvas communicates to them. They interact with my canvas. They see purple, they see blue, they see orange, red, they see green, they see all these colors that frankly are kind of hard to identify because they're layers and layers and layers of color, which is of course my intention. And they will get impressions. Now, if they think that all artists are communicating deep philosophical lessons, they'll think something stupid like, oh, Dan Nelson, he's telling us that we should take a vacation in Beaufort, North Carolina. Stupid, absurd, right? Or they're saying, oh, Dan Nelson, he's railing, he's not doing it very well. He's shaking his fist at all the rich people that can own boats like this, while in India people are starving, or in the inner city in America people are starving. So he's protesting, but doesn't look like he's protesting. Well, doggone it. It looks to me like Dan is celebrating what's the word? Show off riches. Well, doggone it, Dan Nelson is on the wrong side of history. I don't like Dan Nelson's painting. He celebrates people with having money. And everybody knows, every Marxist knows, that if somebody has enough money to buy one of these boats, it's because they oppressed a bunch of poor people. By the way, just for what it's worth, I'm in the process still, I mentioned this several months, I'm still in the process of reading Karl Marx, Das Kapital. Yes, I am. I'm the only person you know, unless you have a philosophy major friend or political science major. I'm the only person you know who's actually going to have read Karl Marx's Das Kapital. It's full of crap. There's no question. It is official, legalized. What Karl Marx does is he gives human beings permission to nurse at the breast of envy. Suck that envy milk. I'm being crude, rude, to make the point. Everybody is tempted to be envious. Myself, everybody's tempted to be envious. Somewhere, way back somewhere, some Jewish God says, thou shalt not envy. Of course, that's because he was a killjoy and a crank and wanted to ruin everybody's funny, or that's just what people are running around in the desert. Imagine this God said. Oh boy, we could go on and on. Anyway, so God said don't envy. Marx said to hell with that. Envy away, buddy. Envy away. And Marx has never lacked for followers because he gives us permission, invites us to enter into the darkest side of our nature and nurture it. Well, okay, I rant and rave at extreme today. But that's how communication happens. It's a two-step process. One, I commune with the canvas. I'm done. I sign it. I sell it. It's on a wire on a wall. Number two, somebody communes with my canvas. That's how communication happens. So does communication take place? Absolutely, it does. Because people can tell by looking at this canvas that I, for instance, believe in the color red, as I was using that as an example earlier. That is what becomes obvious. All right, man, anybody that's stuck with me, let me see what kind of chats are going on here. I can only imagine. All right, I've been seeing the last one. Jake Watson says, I almost like Dan's blithering more than his painting. I'm not sure how to take that, Jake. I'm kidding. I'll take that as a good thing because I sure am blathering. There's no question about it. What you're seeing is the real thing. By the way, and just for what it's worth, you don't need to believe me. I don't need to be correct about this, but I will tell you that my self-identity is I conceive of myself as a philosopher who happens to paint, not a painter who happens to philosophize. I might be wrong about that. My self-identity might be all screwed up. Lots of people's are. But that is, in fact, what I think about myself, that I'm actually a philosopher at heart. That is the core of my being. And painting is toward the outskirts of my being, if you will. All right, back to some comment. Then we should wrap this up because it's been going on way too long. Let's go back to the beginning then. I do enjoy your thoughts and comments. And Rip Humanity, I don't know if you're still with us, but thanks for joining me from Germany. I appreciate that. Sujit Sharma. By the way, in case I forget, I mentioned it briefly, very briefly. Toby Newhouse, if you see this, or if somebody sees Toby, tell him he set me on to Paul Talks. And I've been doing an absolute marathon of Paul Talks videos for the last 3 days. I am gutting out, and I do like him very much, very much. I've listened to several of his videos twice, especially his videos on modern art. And we agree to a large degree. He uses completely different language than I do. But I like very much what he said. So thank you, Toby, for turning me on to Paul Talks. Michael McEwen. Michael, I'm trying to remember where you're from. Australia? South America? I forget, sorry. You're an inspiration, Dan. Just love your work and your blethering. Scottish word. Blethering. Thank you very much. You're from Scotland, right? Hi, Susan. Good to have you on board. Good. Like painting boats, too. I've done a lot of boats over the years. It's been a while. Been a little bit while since I've done some. Dan has an opinion. Thank you for laughing with me. Hello, Nicholas Bravo. Good to have you on board again. And Cyril Doom, bonjour. Bonjour, indeed, to you as well. Jane, hi Jane, good to have you on board. I needed to drop off 30 minutes ago. Needed to hear the rest of the philosophy. Thank you. Well, I'm going to stop. I'm going to release you all from my blithering. As you can tell, I have fun with you guys watching. And both of you. I don't have a lot of viewers. But Paul Talks has less than me, and he's smarter than I am, so that was a little encouraging. I think I'm going to just add a little bit more like my cone. Well, I'll do most of this cone in the oil stage, but you can see it very vaguely happening already. It will get exaggerated much with the oil stage. I think I'm going to lighten the sky up here a little bit more to help that illusion. And then I will move on to oil. All right, but I'm going to end this broadcast here and this blithering. Thank you, guys. Appreciate your company. Any other comments? No, that's it. All right, thanks. Bye-bye.